In all kinds of big advertising campaigns, high-end packaging projects, apps, websites and brands, illustration is the part that everyone loves. And it's also the part that gets cut first. It's the most visible part of a creative project and it connects with customers, and somehow it's the least valued part of the process. What the f*** is that about? The problem isn't just that clients don't value illustration. It's that illustrators are brought into the project once all the valuable strategic thinking has already been done. I've given this a lot of thought, and I think we have 4 major problems. There's a perception problem. Illustration equals art and decoration, not business. And there's a process problem. Illustrators are hired after the concept and strategy are already decided. Then we've got a communication problem. Illustrators talk about style, not strategy. And then we've also got market pressure. There's an oversupply which drives prices down. There's always a cheaper alternative for clients. That includes AI and it also includes other humans. If you're the last person invited into the project, you'll always have the least power in the room. So I'm going to break those problems down, but first, yes, skill matters. If your portfolio and your technical skills aren't strong enough, none of this stuff is going to save you. Clients hire illustrators because they need great visuals. That's the baseline. There are a lot of talented illustrators out there, but talent alone doesn't explain why some artists get big campaigns while others are quietly struggling. The most popular illustrators take a creative project to the next level. They're not just decorating a book or a box. The projects are built around their style. They're an essential part of the project, not an afterthought. And they've reached a point where clients compete for them. If they're unavailable, the client has to rethink the project or settle for plan B. But for most illustrators, by the time you're hired, the real creative decisions, the concept, the message, even maybe the color scheme have already been made by producers and art directors. You're not helping to shape the story, you're just decorating it. And that's where that value gap comes from. Those A-player illustrators are paid more, they're valued more, they have more creative input because they're brought in earlier in the process. So let's start with the first one, the perception problem. Illustration has always sat in this weird middle bit between art and business. It's creative, emotional, and expressive, but for many clients, it isn't seen as a strategic option, even though it does help sell more products and does help brands connect with their target audience. Graphic designers, logo designers, web designers, copywriters, even photographers have all closed this gap and made their creative work a strategic asset to their clients. The reason I started thinking about this in the first place was when James Martin put a post on Instagram with this quote, "You are all valuable, you are all needed." And it's a list of different creative job titles, illustrators not included. Now it's just a social post, right? And there were plenty of comments from other creatives that weren't listed too. And he's since done another post with a few more creative job titles for the people who were left out of the first one. But it really set off a train of thought for me. We are not valued in the same way that all these other creatives are because of how we're perceived. Illustrators make things look nice. Illustrators are arty and disorganized. Illustrators are sensitive. Illustrators don't understand business. And some of these things are true for some illustrators. But what if we were perceived as creative problem solvers who can visualize complex ideas and emotions that words alone can't communicate? Communicators who can translate abstract brand values into something that's easily understood and help tell stories for the client's customers. Strategic partners who understand the audience and the tone and the messaging. And professionals who hit deadlines, ask smart questions, and care about the client's goals as much as their own style. Or creatives who bring measurable value, where the illustrations make the project look good, but also makes it perform better, impacts engagement, brand recognition, and helps the client sell more products. Does that sound like someone you want on your creative team? Does it sound valuable? I think so. So if you're good at these things, your contribution is valuable. That's clear. So why don't clients treat it that way? Well, part of the problem is timing. This is part of the process problem. As I've already said, illustrators are mostly brought into projects after all the important strategic work and thinking has been done. At that stage, the creative team of designers, creative directors and producers don't need new ideas, they just need execution. When your job is to simply execute the ideas of other more valued creatives, you can't influence the big picture or show your full creative value. That's not your fault. It's just the way projects have worked for years, and it's going to be very hard to change. But every project you work on is a chance to Push that boundary just a little bit and let clients see what else you can bring to the table. You can do that with the questions you ask, not about the style or the color palette, but about the target audience and the message that the client is trying to communicate, and asking what the goal of the campaign is and tailoring your work to reach that goal. You can also do it with how you present yourself and your work online. Offer some insight into your creative thinking and how you solved a specific problem for a client. The earlier you can show that you can think about the why, not just the what, the more influence and value you'll have. And that leads us to the next challenge, the communication problem. Because even if you do think strategically, most illustrators don't talk about their work in a way that shows it. If the perception of the artist is that you're not good with big picture thinking and you don't communicate or demonstrate anything different, that perception is never going to change. When a client lands on your portfolio or Instagram, what do they see? Usually a grid of finished images, maybe a few close-ups and a caption that says something like personal piece or cover illustration for The Guardian. That's nice, but it doesn't tell the client how you think. Designers, copywriters, and brand strategists have all learned to talk about the why behind their work. Illustrators still tend to talk about the how. We talk about brush textures, color palettes, and process, but not about the problem that the illustration solved for the client. If you want to raise your perceived value, you need to start translating your creativity into client language. Here's what that looks like. Instead of illustration for a tech client experimenting with bright colors, try illustration created to make a complex fintech product feel approachable and human. The color palette was chosen to align with the client's brand refresh and stand out in App Store thumbnails. It's not about sounding corporate, it's about showing that you understand what matters to the people who are hiring you. And that kind of language signals that you're not just an artist making pretty pictures, you're a collaborator who understands communication, different audiences, and the goals of your clients. And if you consistently practice writing about your work in that way, in captions, case studies, portfolio descriptions, even emails, you start changing how people see you. They stop seeing an illustrator, they start seeing a creative professional. And the next time a client briefs you, try reframing your feedback around their objectives. How does this illustration help the audience understand your message? Do you want the viewer to feel curiosity, excitement, or calm when they see it? Is this illustration meant to attract new customers or deepen loyalty with existing customers? Even if you're a really great illustrator, we can't ignore that there's more supply than demand. There are thousands of great illustrators out there, and every year there are more new graduates trying to get their foot in the door. That means your client has a lot of options, a lot. If you turn a project down, someone else will take it. And if that someone is cheaper, faster, or easier to work with, the client's decision is simple, especially when budgets are tight. AI has taken a lot of entry-level jobs away from creatives for basically no cost to the client. If all you're offering is pictures, you are replaceable by another artist or by something else. It's more important than ever to develop these higher-level strategic skills, because if you want to get paid well to work on amazing creative projects, simply producing illustrations might not be enough. But if you can give the client confidence that you understand their project at a deeper level and their audience and their goals, and you can actually help them get results, then you become less easily replaced. You become more valuable. So how do you actually start changing all this? If perception, process, communication, and the market are all stacked against us, how do you stand out? I know from most of the illustrators I speak to that their main concern is getting any work. They already feel overwhelmed with the competition and all the things they need to learn and the time it takes to improve their skills. And that's fair. This is advanced stuff. If you don't have any clients yet, sure, just focus on getting any work first. But the earlier you can become a valuable partner to a client, the better. You don't do that by being the fastest or the cheapest. You do it by thinking differently. Here are a few ways to start. Ask better questions. Don't just ask about, the format, color, or the deadlines. You do need to ask about that, but also ask about the audience, the message, and the emotions. What's the client trying to make people feel? What action do they want the audience to take once they see the illustration? Those questions shift you from decorator to problem solver. Connect your work to outcomes. When you post a project, don't just describe what you made, describe what it achieved. helped a fintech brand feel more human, clarified a complex message for a non-technical audience, increased engagement on launch. Even if you don't have these metrics, describe your intent. You're showing that you're thinking like a strategist. Document your thinking. Start building small case studies, not long essays, just a paragraph explaining the problem that the client had, what you proposed, and why it worked. That language helps clients see your strategic value more immediately. Be a professional partner, not just a vendor. Deliver on time, be easy to brief, ask questions that make clients think. Professionalism is the baseline for being invited back, but offering more than just pictures is what will get you invited back earlier in the creative process next time. Don't hide behind email. Our insecurities as creative people often make us hide behind screens, but you can't make an impression if you're just an email chain. Invite calls, be open to meeting your clients and having a real conversation about the project, and be an active participant on the call too. Share what you're thinking, run ideas by the art director, come prepared. Be an active, visible part of the creative team. This might sound like a lot, and nothing is going to change overnight, but most illustrators aren't doing any of this. If you've achieved real positive outcomes for your clients, even small improvements in how you communicate that and how you interact with clients can make a big difference. You don't need to rebrand yourself or become an expert in marketing, but a few small changes in the way you communicate can show that you understand the bigger picture and that your work is more than just the style, but it's also about the impact it has on your client's project. The industry needs illustrators who think like this. Clients want original human ideas, and they want people on their team who can bring some empathy and clarity and emotion to their projects. If you can combine strong craft with strong thinking, you'll position yourself as a valuable partner that deserves to be well paid. Your clients will want you to be involved earlier in the creative process, and that's where the real opportunity is. If there's one thing to take away from this, it's that your value isn't fixed. Take small steps to becoming a more valuable partner to your clients. Maybe it simply starts with jumping on a call to introduce yourself and put a face to the name. And if you have ideas, don't be afraid to share them. If you want to build on this, I've got a follow-up video here exploring 3 ways illustrators might be holding themselves back from bigger and better opportunities. See you next time.